And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another VFL Vantage. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to the Victorian Football League and the VFLW. And as per usual, joining me, my faithful co-host for these VFL shows, Mr. Brendan John T. Rhodes. Brendan, it is great to see you again, sir.
Always a pleasure, Donny. Great to take the game to the world, as we say.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, sir, we have had some fun footy. We've had 3 rounds of football go since the last time that we talked. Men's rounds 11 through 13 and women's rounds 4 through 6. Really quickly, sir, your thoughts on the footy that the Victorians men's and women's comps have given us.
Well, the men's competition has been absolutely amazing. There's nothing between most of the competition. We've obviously got the one team that's cleared out at the top, being Geelong, and nothing's really changed since the last time we spoke. But the rest of the competition is just crazy. Box Hill Hawks sitting in second spot on 8 wins, and there's only, I would say, what is there, 3 wins down to 16th on the ladder. And below that are the reigning premiers, who are right on the brink of being knocked out of the final contention, and 3 of the other teams that I had originally predicted into the top 6. So yeah, that just tells you how good a comp it is. And even those teams down the bottom, the finals contenders will be nervously looking over the shoulder, waiting for them to wake up. And as for the VFLW, well, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we do have a clear gap emerging in the competition there. But a wonderful, wonderful result on Sunday, which we'll talk about as well.
Yep, definitely for sure, and I think that's actually a great transition because let's be gentlemen, sir. Let's start with the women because, as we said, rounds 4 through 6 need to be discussed. Let's jump to round 4, where unfortunately there wasn't a lot of parity in this one, so we'll have to stretch a little bit to see if we can talk about some competitive games. We start off as Sandy get a win over Geelong 41-19. The Western Bulldogs get a win over the Darebin Falcons 29-16. Collingwood with a smashing of the Casey Demons 74-8. North Melbourne goes hold my beer. We'll do it once more with a 70-point win over the Tassie Devils 101-31. The Essendon Bombers get it done with a 32-point win 63-31. And Williamstown goes what rivalry with a 50-9 win over the Port Melbourne Borough. Unfortunately, we look at it, the teams that are supposed to win this round, and they win impressively.
They certainly do. There's no question about that. North Melbourne Werribee putting their hands up and saying that they're still the team to beat. It was a nasty little welcome to the Devils to show, yeah, this is the standard that you're eventually going to be aiming to get to. That wasn't here in Melbourne either. That was down in Tasmania. To win by 12 goals, and is an amazing effort. And an amazing effort, too, in VFLW that Tassie was still able to kick 5 themselves against the powerhouse opposition. It seems to be a few results popping up where teams are kicking a lot of behinds and not managing a goal. That happened again with Port Melbourne kicking 9 behinds against Williamstown. I think that's the 3rd time this season that a team has kicked 9, 11 or 12 points without a goal, which is scarcely believable that when it happens once, let alone so regularly. And Collingwood clearing out with a big win over Casey, who are struggling a bit. But the one that really turned my head was the Western Bulldogs. The week before, they'd been held to just 2 points by Collingwood, and those 2 points came in the last 4 minutes of the game, as we touched on last time. 7 days later, they come back and win. And they beat Darebin by 13 points. It was a low-scoring game. It was a tough game, but that is a real character-building performance by the Western Bulldogs to get up and win a week after almost being held scoreless. And the likes of Georgia Livingston and Ellie Bishop and Erica Fowler, experienced, skillful players, were the ones who took it on their bat to make that happen. So that was well done by the Bulldogs.
Definitely, for sure. Let's move on to round 5, and we're going to do just a little bit different because I'm going to save the first game to be the one to talk about last because it's probably game of the round. So let's go in reverse order here. We'll start off with Essendon getting a win over the KC Demons, 62-26, a 36-point win by the Dons. The Seagulls beat the Zebras 39-6, a 33-point win. The Darabin Falcons also welcomed the Tassie Devils with a 33-point win over their southern neighbors, 47-14. North Melbourne again with another dominant win with a 58-point win over Box Hill 76-18. But the game we must talk about, Brendan, is a 1-point thriller as the Cats survive and get a win over the Doggies 30-29. But this isn't one of those where you look at it and the Cats survive. The Cats win it at the death.
Absolute classic contest, this one on a Friday night too, showing that women's football can take centre stage. 5 lead changes in the game. Bulldogs kicked the first goal. Geelong responded. Couple to the Dogs, 3 to the Cats. They took the lead midway through the third quarter, and then the Western Bulldogs kicked the first goal of the last term. That came through Emmy Neckrep. They had the lead, and it looked like, well, they might hang on, but at the death, Geelong just peppered and peppered and peppered, and from 4 points down, they won it with 5 consecutive behinds. No goals. A a rush behind brought it back to 3. Elise Cook missed 2 points. Brooke Borchard 1 point. Charlotte Canavan scores level, and then Steph O'Kane with 2 minutes to go kicked the 5th consecutive behind and put Geelong in front, and they managed to hold on right to the end in a game that anyone that watched just couldn't turn away. And there would have been quite a few people who were probably watching the VFL game that night or the AFL game that night that would have turned over just to watch the end of this, because it was a ripper and a great win for Geelong to put themselves in the finals contention as well.
Yeah, definitely for sure. It's definitely one of those early season game of the year contenders for sure. Let's move on to the last round that we have seen previously. We'll start on with Collingwood with a 53-point win over Essendon, 67-14. Bombers tame yourselves just the tiniest bit. Port Melbourne with a 19-point win, 42-23. The Western Bulldogs bounce back after the loss with the Cats with a win over Box Hill, 44-28. Geelong with a 31-7 win over the Darabin Falcons. The Williamstown Seagulls get a win over the KC Demons by 42, 50-8. But I think the game, I know this may not be the most competitive one, but we got to talk about it. The Tassie Devils get their first win as a women's side with a 25-point win over the Zebras, 43-18. How awesome is it? The Devils are on the board. They get their first win as a club in the VFLW.
And the scenes after this game, I wasn't lucky enough to have seen it because I was on my way to commentate my own game that day. But looking at the scenes on social media, you could tell how much it meant to the Devils to not just win, but to come over to the mainland and beat a team that is considered to be one of the finals teams, and not just beat them easily. It was brilliant, and they did it from the start. They kicked the only goal in the first quarter. They kicked 2 goals in the second, another one in the third. Sandringham was goalless at 3-quarter time, and it was basically party time towards the end. Yes, the Zebras did find a couple of goals late in that last quarter. They pulled it back. It was the ninth minute and the 15th minute of the last quarter before they were actually able to kick a goal. That speaks to the dominance of the Tasmania Devils, and you couldn't help but feel a bit of pride and a bit of joy in it for the Devils and their coach, their rookie coach Georgia Walker, former AFLW player, of course, to finally get a win. It only took 5 games, so that doesn't sound massively long. But given how the men are faring, having gone 3-0 to start the year, there would have been a little bit of not external but internal frustration that the girls hadn't been able to do so. So for them to get on the board, and they can now say they've arrived as a club, as a team, and it's onwards and upwards from there. And And it was the young ones that did it too. A couple of goals each for Diane Krushka and Ava Reed, and was just fantastic to see. And but the experience also came through Claire Ransom, who only announced her retirement from the AFLW at GWS right on the eve of the season. She was instrumental in this game with 23 disposals. So well done to the Devils, and yeah, let's hope there's quite a few more before the end of the year.
Definitely, for sure, and a great way to end that particular round. Let's move on to the men, where we see rounds 11 through 13 that we need to discuss. And round 11 gave us some great ones. We start off as the Tassie Devils get a 14-point win at home at Hobart Oval, 104-90. And I could not believe this score when I saw this, as the Dolphins get an impressive win at Kinetic Stadium by 49, 133-84. Collingwood get a win over Casey Demons 68-56. The Gold Coast Suns win the We Need to Give a Shit Cup 85-68 over the Brisbane Lions. Box Hill Hawks get a win over Footscray by 8, 73-65. Werribee get a win over the Coburg Lions 107-48. Geelong continue their strong season with a 58-point win over the Sandy Zebras 94-36. And then, sir, three incredible games to end the round. We start off with the Scoro Fest between Sydney and St. Kilda, as the Saints edge out in a scoreathon, 110-107, a 3-point win by the Saints. Essendon and Carlton go, you want to know what? Let's do it just as good, as Essendon get an 8-point win over Carlton, 93-85. And the old rivals go, hold my beer, ladies and gentlemen, we'll do you one better, with a 1-point win, 100-99 for the Borough. 4 games, sir. 4 games under 2 goals. What a round of footy.
This is what we want to see, isn't it?
Yep.
Close football, heart-stopping football, and that's what we're going to get over and over and over again in this VFL season, where there's nothing between the teams. Yeah, we're going to get the odd blowout even between those teams that are closely matched when injuries bite and that sort of thing. And I'll start with the big one that you mentioned there, because that's the one I called, so I can say a bit more about it, being Frankston and Southport. Face value suggests that Frankston was far too good, and yes, they were. Southport does have some excuses. They had I think one fit player left on the bench by the last quarter due to serious injuries. Josh Gore re-hurt his knee just before halftime. His season is over. Unfortunately, the big one was Braden Crossley, the superstar ruckman, who felt hamstring tightness and didn't return after halftime, and that was where Frankston was able to get the initiative. They'd kicked 7 goals early on. They'd led by 42 points in the second quarter. The Sharks came flying back and got within 10 points or 8 points at halftime. Then we didn't see Big Goober after the main break, and away Frankston went again. They kicked 5 goals to 2 in the third quarter. They kicked 5 goals to 1 in the fourth quarter. Hawago Awaya's season is over as well. He had to stay out there for the rest of the game on an ankle injury that has since seen his season ruled out. So that tells you where it was for the Sharks, and they've since lost another one, which we'll talk about in the next round, which makes it really hard for them. Corey Ellison's 7 goals. He was just brilliant for the Dolphins. But so the 5 games, in fact, decided by 2 goals or less. Collingwood coming from behind to beat Casey. They were 21 points down at halftime, and they held Casey goalless from midway through the third quarter to get up by a couple of kicks. And the Box Hill over Footscray, that one was a cracking contest, a low-scoring game, but important for Box Hill and critical for Footscray, because they just got their season back on track, and then it seems to have fallen away again. Yes, they've got their injuries, but they should be performing better than they are. And then the Sunday football, the St Kilda game. This is the one that they'd been on the up, the Saints, this is the one that proved that they are a fair dinkum team. Uh, they kicked 6 goals to 3 in the first quarter in Sydney against the Swans, and every bullet that the Swans fired from their gun, St Kilda had an answer for. And in the end, it was 3 points. The Swans kicked a goal on the siren to bring it back to 3 points. So it was a good victory for the Saints away from home, and it just showed with the former Paddy Dow, 32 disposals. They found one in young Josh Clark with 29, and then the listed players like Toby Travalia, Jack Carroll, Dan Butler, who got himself back into the AFL team on this. That was terrific. The Swans had a brilliant side that day. Harry Cunningham, 37 disposals. Peter Laddams, 35 touches, 26 hitouts. Billy Cootie, 28 and a goal. Corey Warner, 28. Joel Hamling, 24 touches, 12 marks. Young Mitch Mellors kicked 3 goals from 24 touches. They were terrific, Sydney, and they kicked 17 goals, 5, and it still wasn't enough.
Yep.
So that tells you how good the Saints were on that day. Carlton and Essendon with 6 goals straight in the first quarter, and in the end, it was the Blues' poor kicking that cost them 11-19 to 14-9. Makes all the difference, doesn't it? Tom Edwards with 5 goals on his return from injury for the Bombers. As the Blues, well, they were second on the ladder. They were down near the bottom. They won 4 in a row. They got up to second. And now they're on the slide again, and they find themselves a couple of games outside the top 10. So that's how quickly it can change in a close competition. And as for the 1-pointer in the Johnson Callaghan Cup, what a game, what a performance by Port Melbourne. Port Melbourne is a team on the rise. Williamstown is a team that should be up there around the top 4 to 6. But this was Port Melbourne's game for the most part. Willie led by a goal at quarter time. Port took the lead in the second quarter, led by a couple of goals. They were 24 points up at 3-quarter time. They stretched that margin to about 27 early in the final quarter. And then it was Williamstown who absolutely dominated in the run home. And they flew back. They kicked, what was it? It was goals to Lockie Wilson in his first game for Williamstown against the team he signed for in the off season, but then left before round 1. The former Richmond dual best and fairest winner. Heath Ollington kicked a goal, 14 points. Nathan Colenso, 7 points. Then Roy George, the live wire for Port, he got the steadier, 13 points the difference. Ben Kennedy back to 7. Callan Dawson made it a 1-point game at the 25-minute mark of the last quarter. And anyone who was watching this game, and I did catch the last few minutes of it, just thought it was only a matter of time before the Seagulls managed to find that goal that put them ahead. And it just never came. Desperate defending, brilliant defending by Port Melbourne. A late shot from Diesel Maloney from right on the 50 or just inside that you would normally think he would kick was marked by Tom Highmore 2 metres out, right in front of the goal line, and the siren sounded a second later. So Port Melbourne literally hang on, but a very much deserved victory for the Borough, and it proves that they are a threat as well in this season.
Definitely, for sure. And let's move on to round 12. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to back that up. We'll see what we can do. Start off with Friday night footy sees a shocker up in Queensland as the Swans get a win over Southport 118-82. Geelong absolutely smashed the Suns 147-34. Werribee get a win over Brisbane 88-62. The Zebras with an impressive 11-point win over Footscray 59-48. The Williamstown Seagulls get a win over GWS 93-83. Tassie smashed the Richmond Tigers at home at UTAS Stadium 85-22. North Melbourne and St. Kilda split the points in an 86-86 draw. Coburg surprised the Frankston Dolphins with a 15-point win 79-64. And the Casey Demons with a win over Essendon 107-75. I mean, the draw again, I'm loving the draw.
You don't get draws in America, do you?
We don't.
It's overtime in one game, extra time in another game.
Yep.
Um, every time there is a draw in the AFL, talk back and
Always.
discussions on either side
Yep.
absolutely explodes.
Yep.
Why why do we play for 2.5 hours for no result? And the people that are in favour of the draw, they love tradition. I they love the tradition of it. That's the way it's always been. The drama. Neither team deserves to lose. Well, cricket plays for 5 days and don't have a result.
Hmm.
That's the argument on this side. On the
Yep.
other side, as I said, it's why would you? What's the point of playing for 2.5 hours
Hours
or
and not.
nearly 3 hours, having a draw, no result? The most common saying you hear is that it's like dancing with your sister,
Yep. Heard that.
and but
Can I
on this,
just let me quickly hop in for the American on this. I'm a weird American. I love the draw because for me, it's that weird talk back of, well, one team deserved to win but didn't get the win. Another team probably deserved to lose and didn't get the loss. So it's a weird thing. But for me, like I understand, but for me, I love the draw because it actually can be a good thing for one team and a bad thing for another. So it's actually, as much as everybody's like, it's so weird because there's no song and everything. Like that's kind of the coolest part about it is because you're so used to the song playing for the winning team and the silence and the eeriness of it. For me, I think it's cool. Plus, it's not like you don't get a result. Each team gets 2 points. They just don't get the full 4 points. So I don't think it's 2 hours for no result. It's 2 hours for a split of the result. Does that make sense?
it makes perfect sense, and I sit right down the middle. I sit right on the fence. I'm a draw with it,
Yep.
um, because yeah, I am definitely a traditionalist, and I love the tradition side of things. That's the way it's been, and it is a result. And as you said, it can be a massive boost for a team with a poor percentage that no longer has to worry about their percentage. They just get the points and they're okay. Uh, it can the team with a really strong percentage, it then renders their percentage meaningless unless there are other draws.
Yep.
So then they just have to get the results to make them happen. As for one team deserving to win and not winning, and one team deserving to lose and not losing, in this case, both teams sit on both sides of that ledger.
Hmm.
Amazingly, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. It
North,
totally makes
North
sense.
Melbourne, North Melbourne was in front early. They fell 10 behind at 3/4 time. And then they came back and they had a 13-point lead deep into time on of the last quarter. And they would have felt, yep, we've got this done. We are home. But they weren't able to keep it. So while they will feel, yeah, they were unlucky, they'll feel they were unlucky to lose because they got chased down. They were probably lucky not to lose because they got chased down. St Kilda will feel that they should have won because, as we said with Essendon and Carlton, bad kicking is bad football. 11 goals, 20 they kicked the Saints to North Melbourne's 13-8. So 31 scoring shots to 21 for a no result leaves St Kilda probably feeling like they blew it, but they would have also left thinking, well, we escaped with 2 points here by kicking the last two goals to pinch that draw right at the end.
Yep, definitely for sure. Let's move on to round 13, where I'm going to do it again. I'm going to save the best game for last. So we'll start off Box Hill with an impressive 97-point win over the Suns. The Suns' pain continues 142-45. I'm going to skip over the next game because that is game of the round because we got to talk about that one. Well, move on as Geelong get another win over the Southport Sharks, adding to the pain, unfortunately, with a 47-point win, 93-46. And here's where we see some incredible scores. Williamstown with a 121-84 win over the KC Demons. GWS goes hold my beer, 155-86 win over Carlton. Coburg goes, we'll get at least 102 and get a 17-point win over the Borough, 103-86. Tassie goes, we're going to do it too. A 148-112 win over the Sandy Dragons. St. Kilda goes, we'll do the 100 too, as they get a 125-88 win over the Footscray Bulldogs. North goes, let's join the party as they get a 122-59 point win over the Richmond Tigers. But the game I skipped over has to be the one we talk about as the Frankston Dolphins, again at home, get a massive 1 point win over the Collingwood Magpies, 79-78, but a fourth quarter comeback for the ages as they get a huge win late in the quarter. Again, I'm loving this Dolphins side because they don't give up, and another late game winner.
And they do it so often down there at Kinetic Stadium. They're just never beaten. That I say that yes, you can beat a formidable Dolphins team in front of a formidable Dolphins crowd. That's the way I describe it. You can beat them, but you have to play 4 hard quarters of tough physical footy because they are hard, they are tough, they are physical, they don't mind a scrap. They've got the most passionate supporters in the competition who are not just a 19th man on the field; they're probably a 20th and 21st men as well down there on the Cairn Hill at the Pod. Um, if you had the fortune to come to Australia, Donny, and you wanted me to take you to a game, that's where I'm taking you.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's some big AFL games that I'd be taking you to as well. But as far as the VFL, what would go, I'm taking you to a Friday night game at Frankston.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
on this particular occasion, Collingwood controlled the game for the most part. Yes, they were behind by a couple of goals at half time, but they had a 17-point lead at three-quarter time. They stretched that to 22 early in the last in a low-scoring contest. And then Frankston just plugged away. They just plugged away. It didn't come quickly. That's the thing. At the 7-minute mark, a goal for Harrison Jones. At the 17-minute mark, Tane Barlow. Kobe Askew made it a 5-point game 23 minutes in, so there's still plenty of time left here. Collingwood missed an opportunity, a tough miss from a debutant in Nick Thompson. Then Jackson Voss, who anyone who follows the VFL just sits back and scratches their head and wonders how this bloke is not playing AFL football. Off half back, he's just brilliant. And he snuck forward. He snapped an amazing goal that levelled the scores at the 28-minute mark of the last quarter. And then right at the death, they went forward again. Voss was involved again, and he passed the ball. I'm not sure. I can't quite remember whether it was directly to Noah Gown, but he was involved in that passage of play. And Noah Gown, the big man, from outside 50, kicked it behind. Siren sounded 4 seconds later. It was the only time Frankston had led since, or I think the first time Frankston had led since
Second
about the
quarter.
15-minute mark of the third quarter. And they pinched the result again. And well, if there was a roof on Kinetic Stadium, it wouldn't be there anymore.
Yeah, I remember seeing this and just looking at the score worm and just how the fourth quarter it went from a nice healthy 20 point lead to they just kept chipping away. So I think getting it behind at the
And I will say,
32:04 mark. Oh my gosh, that was insane.
Jackson Voss, 32 disposals, 8 marks, 4 clearances. When he doesn't usually go into a contest, he's like, and that sounded bad. He doesn't usually start at the contest,
Hmm.
but he loves it. He loves a contest, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the match tying goal. What a performance from him. And the Dolphins, 6 wins in 8 games. They find themselves in 7th spot on the ladder, but they're only a game out of the top 2. So they've got to keep doing what they have to do, which is win those games at home, pinch a couple away, and they'll be well placed to potentially repeat that preliminary final performance from last year.
Yeah, definitely for
And
sure.
as for the shootouts, 9 games, 7 winning teams kicking over 100
Mhm.
was just great to see. And I suppose the biggest ones to look at there, the Williamstown Casey game. It was one of those classic ones at Williamstown. I'm not sure if you've got venues over there where the game can be decided on the toss of the coin simply because of how strong the wind is blowing straight down the middle of the ground. I'm sure you can picture those in football, even in American football. There'd be
Yep.
games where it can be completely decided by the wind, because those big open stadiums that they've got would really
Mhm.
lend themselves to this. 7 goals to 2 in the first quarter for Williamstown. Then they didn't kick a goal in the second, going against it. Casey missed their opportunity with 3 goals, 7, and that's probably where the game was decided.
Yep.
The third quarter, at the 20-minute mark, so entering time on, Casey had a shot to bring the score back to 13 points the difference. And coming home with a 6-goal win in the last quarter, you would just think Casey would run over the top.
Mhm.
That shot went straight into the man on the mark from 20 metres out directly
Oh,
in front.
jeez.
Williamstown picked the ball up off the goal line, pass out to halfback. Casey gives away a 50-metre penalty.
Oh.
Uh, and a long kick down into the forward pocket where Diesel Maloney, the player I mentioned from
Mhm.
the Port Melbourne game that he couldn't quite get the job done, kicks the Casey player he's on, slips over, and he takes the mark, goes back, calmly slots the goal. 13 points becomes 25 points.
Mhm.
Williamstown goes bang, bang, bang. It's 51 points the difference at three-quarter time, and no one runs down Williamstown. No matter, you could have a
No.
20-goal breeze, and you're not running Williamstown down from that margin.
Yep.
Game over. Three mistakes in one passage of play for Casey, and the game's over right there.
Oh, that's I feel sorry for those boys at review because that's going to be difficult to watch
And
for sure.
and they are two of the three that were involved are fresh off AFL lists.
Mhm.
So Ethan Stanley was the former Fremantle player, who was the one who kicked into the man on the mark. I think he's left the AFL, left Fremantle at the end of 2024. He's a star, and he'll recover from that. And he did recover from that. 3 minutes later, he kicked a brilliant set shot from the boundary line, but the floodgates had been opened by then.
Yep.
Luaman Lual was the player who slipped over at the other end. He's fresh off Essendon's list. He's gone to Casey to look
Mhm.
for a second chance at Melbourne. Um, just the tiniest little slip, he goes down. Williamstown player in Maloney keeps his feet.
Yep.
The player who gave away the 50 gets a leave pass. He's a young player, Nate Pipicelli, in probably only his 6th or 7th game, and he got caught out by the stand rule.
Yeah.
So that happens, and it happens to the best players in the AFL. So
Yep.
just a little bit of bad luck on that occasion, but it was just bang, 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 the perfect storm of errors that. And when Williamstown's like a dog with a bone. When they get that bone in their teeth, uh, there ain't no one taking it off them.
Nope. Fully understand. Well, that is it. That is all of the rounds covered for both the men and the women. We'll do real quick again because the internet is not always fun and it is early morning and I don't want to take up too much time of Brendan's. We'll do one quick question for each of the competitions and our burning questions. We'll start off with the women's. I mean, it's very easy to say. All you have to do is look at the ladder to be able to tell I'm going to ask this, Brendan. I mean, is this really become a three-team comp for the flag with three teams sitting atop the competition and the rest kind of with some space between the top three and the rest of the comp?
Unfortunately, I have to say yes. The evidence is right there in front of you. The scores are right there in front of you. The margins are right there in front of you.
Hmm.
These teams aren't just winning; they are spanking opposition. Collingwood, Williamstown, and North Melbourne Werribee. That's the order they sit on the ladder right now. 15 wins in 16 games between them, and the only loss was in round two when Williamstown went down to the Box Hill Hawks by a point.
Hmm.
Uh, Collingwood holds a percentage of 364, which for those who may not be quite across how our percentages work, it's not differential. It's points for divided by points
Points
against
against.
times
Yep.
100. So Collingwood has scored 364 points for every 100 they've conceded
Yep.
in 5 games. Williamstown's percentage is 359. North Melbourne Werribee's percentage is 276.
276. Yep.
A, a really strong percentage, a great percentage to have in any competition, usually sits at around about 130 to 150.
Yep.
That's how far in front they are. The
Hmm.
fourth place team in the competition is Port Melbourne. The fifth place team is the Western Bulldogs. And the sixth place team at Geelong. They have all had goalless games this year.
Yep.
And they
And all
sit
have
on
on.
percentages
Yep.
of 82.2, 81.9, and 74.4. And those are there's only two or three other percentages down the list that are comparable to that sort of level. So the difference between third and fourth has never been more stark.
Hmm.
The top six system is an interesting one in that the two of them will get a double chance. The third one will have to play an elimination final, which they undoubtedly will win based on that, and then they will get a double chance
Yep.
in the second week of the final. So it's almost going to be preferable in this year to finish third, get rid of your knockout final early, and then you've got two cracks at making the grand final.
Yep.
The top place team, of course, can play at home all the way through, so that's a big advantage. So it's probably the team that finishes second that will be most disadvantaged, because if whoever loses that qualifying final is then going to have to play a semi-final against one of those teams who are probably not in the mix at all, but will have confidence and momentum from having won a final. And if there's ever going to be an upset, that's where it might happen. Uh, as for, I did hear somewhere, I did hear it said somewhere, it was mentioned a couple of weeks ago that maybe North Melbourne Werribee had shown a little bit of vulnerability. And that might be because they haven't won by quite as much as the
Hmm.
others. But if you have a listen to this, I'll just run through them quickly. Round one, biggest ever win over Port Melbourne at ETU Stadium, at Port Melbourne's home ground. Round two, highest ever score and biggest ever win versus Carlton. Round three, highest ever score versus Darebin. Round four, highest ever VFLW score away from home, biggest ever VFLW win away from home. Round five, highest ever score versus Box Hill Hawks, biggest ever win versus Box Hill Hawks. Round six, they had the bye.
Hmm.
There's no vulnerabilities whatsoever in North Melbourne Werribee. They might sit third on the ladder at the moment. No worries at all for the
No,
Kangaroos.
it's gonna come down to those three, how the head-to-head matchups is gonna go, where they fit out. But it's gonna be interesting. At least there's three teams instead of just one. I know last year it was North Melbourne, Werribee, Collingwood was being discussed, but we were pretty sure. So having three teams in that talk again, still early in the year, there's still plenty of footy to go. but it's a tiny bit discouraging that there is that gap between
Yeah,
third and fourth, that it seems like the Grand Canyon right now. And I think that's
it
that's
is.
that's the part that's really frustrating.
The positive side of things there is that three of those teams who are not in the mix are going to play finals. One of them is going to play two finals. So that's going to be invaluable experience for them. Even if they're not contenders this year, that's going to be an invaluable experience for future years for whoever is good enough to do that. As for the top three, they haven't played each other yet at all, as I've touched
Mhm.
on.
Yep.
Collingwood and North Melbourne Werribee will play twice in the last 5 weeks of the season. The last 7 weeks. So round 9, and then I think it's round 14 they play again. Williamstown does not play either of them until their last two games. Would you believe?
Oh boy.
So in round 14 they will host. So round 9 is Collingwood, North Melbourne, Werribee. That's one to look for. Round 14 is Williamstown versus North Melbourne, Werribee. Round 15, North Melbourne, Werribee versus Collingwood for the second time. Round 16, Collingwood versus Williamstown for the first time. So by the time we get to grand final day, and I believe that the Kangaroos and the Magpies are just ahead of the Seagulls at the moment,
Yep.
there's every likelihood that that will be the fourth meeting between these two great teams in the space of 2 months.
Hmm.
And we saw it in the finals last year when they finished top two and they played in a qualifying final that Collingwood won. Then they played again in a grand final that the Kangaroos won.
Yep.
So the business end of the season isn't just going to be those last 4 weeks. It's going to be those last 6 or 7 weeks that is really where the interest is going to come.
Yep, it's going to be fun. I cannot wait. Again, a lot of footy still to be played. You never know. Again, we'll touch wood, no injuries, anything like that. But again, it's just the tiniest bit discouraging to see such the gap between third and fourth. But again, we'll see. They're going to lock horns, which is going to bring some of these other ones back into the mix again. Whether they're Premiership contenders, we can discuss that a little bit closer to that particular time. Let's move to the men, where you know me, sir. I have this soft spot in my heart for these unattached clubs. I really do, because I know it's not easy facing some of the elite talent that is in some of these AFL lists. So, I mean, how good is it again? Four teams in the top 10 right now are unattached clubs.
Absolutely brilliant, isn't it? The only downside of there being four teams in the top 10 is that there are not six.
Yep.
And Port Melbourne was there until they lost to Coburg on the weekend, and they're sitting in 11th spot on percentage. So they're right on the edge. Southport, unfortunately, as I touched on a little bit earlier, they are going to find it very tough now, unfortunately, simply due to their injuries.
Yep.
I mentioned in the game against, I didn't get a chance to touch on it, but I mentioned there was another season-ending injury the next week after the Frankston game. That was in the loss to Sydney when Brock Aston did his hamstring in the first contest of the game,
Oh boy.
and his season is over as well. There are 17 players across 22 teams in the VFL that have been ruled out for the season. 9 of them are from Southport,
Oh boy.
and it
It's like the Richmond
includes,
AFL list.
yeah, exactly. It includes superstars. It's not just any players. It includes superstars like Boyd Woodcock and Jesse Joyce, um, Gold Coast 50 gamer, VFL Premiership player, best and fairest winner, Hawago Oya, who I mentioned earlier. So it's not just 9 players. It's, I would say, 6 of their top 12 are involved in part of that list. So if they can get back and make the top 10, that would be almost as big an effort as the 3 grand finals they've played in the previous 4 years. So
Mhm.
this is the team that I did tip to win the premiership. But whereas some of the others that have underachieved They've had injuries as well, but they haven't really fired a shot. Particularly the Suns and the Lions down the bottom of the ladder. The Sharks are still fighting hard, and they will still take important scalps. And this week's another one that they've got a chance to do, which we'll get to. But
Yep. And they're only one game back, and they're only one game back too. So
they're
it's
only
not
one.
like
They're only
they're
one.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. So it's not like
but
they're way out of it. They're not. It's not like
they've
Brisbane and
still
Gold
got
Coast, where pretty much, I mean, you can wave the white flag. I think their years are done.
and they've still got 8 or 9 former AFL players there. They've still got the Liston medalist Jacob Dawson.
Yep.
They've still got one of the best 2 or 3 ruckmen in the competition, Braden Crossley. He only missed one game with that hamstring injury. That was the game against Sydney that they lost. He they get to celebrate milestones at Southport 2 weeks in a row because both team the Sharks and the AFL have different stats. If that makes sense to you, there was a game back in 2021 during COVID that was called off after 7 minutes when Queensland called a snap lockdown. Southport count that as an official game. The AFL does not.
Oh boy.
So Jacob Dawson 2 weeks ago celebrated his 100th game a week before the AFL said he played it. Braden Crossley celebrated his 100th game last weekend. AFL records say he does it this weekend.
Yep.
So that they can just have double celebrations for all the blokes who played in that game. Why not?
Yeah, why don't we?
They get
Why
2
don't
chances
we?
to win their 100th game?
Love it.
You get to have that.
Oy. But
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it just shows you. So no, I thought it was I thought it was fantastic. Seeing Coburg there is absolutely magnificent.
Oh,
Like it's
brilliant
like
to see. So
they go to the old school logo and now all of a sudden they become world beaters. Absolutely, absolutely love
they
it. It
put
is
the red shorts back on.
yeah,
They put
yeah,
the red
yeah.
shorts back on in the middle of last year too.
It's like
Six
Samson in
wins
his
out of
hair.
8. Exactly. 6 wins out of 8 games for Frankston. 6 wins out of 7 games for Coburg.
Yep.
And it just warms the heart to see these 2 clubs who have been down for so long. The Dolphins, before the past 2 seasons, the Dolphins hadn't made the final since 2007. The Lions have not made the final since 2008. So everyone who is not the team that is potentially going to miss out for them is hoping that we see both Frankston and Coburg playing in September. Werribee looking dangerous. They're on a good run. Tasmania, what a first season they've had. They're the 4. Box Hill Hawks, yes, they have their Hawthorn players. But for all intents and purposes, they are their own club. They're the one standalone club. Well, sorry, the one aligned club. There's only 2 left now, them and the Casey Demons. But across all the aligned clubs, they've been there since the start, since 2000, as an aligned club, and it's because the Hawks might provide coaching assistance, they might provide financial assistance, they provide those Hawks players, but they do not tell Box Hill how to run their club. They don't tell them what to do. They let Box Hill run their club, and that's why it works, and that's why it's worked so well, and that's why the Hawks are always in contention, because they've never lost the spirit of that little white horse, that Mustang that's on the front of their Guernsey.
Yep. No, it's just so weird seeing 4 aligned clubs, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Richmond, and Collingwood as the bottom 4. I was like, I looked at it, and for me, I didn't
Brisbane I
even,
tipped in the top
yeah,
6. They're all out.
yep,
Yeah,
yep,
they're all out.
yeah. And
Simple
I
as
didn't,
that.
and the
It'll
crazy
take
part
10
is,
wins and 8 losses.
yeah, and the crazy part is, I didn't even count Tassie as an unattached club because of the fact that they are becoming the AFL squad. So I didn't even. So technically, if you could say because they're not AFL yet, you could actually say 5
Oh,
out of
Williamstown there
10.
too. Yeah, so it's 5.
Yep,
Yeah,
because
5. Yeah,
Williamstown,
so
yeah, yeah.
I overlooked. Sorry.
Yeah, you're
I
good.
overlooked
You're
you.
good. I was like, I was sitting here going, I
Yeah,
was
so
like,
it is 5.
I counted Tassie as kind of an attached side because they're eventually going to be the AFL side. But it's like,
No,
if you go by that logic, since they don't have an AFL side, then yeah, it would be 5 with Williamstown, yeah, Werribee, Tassie, Williamstown, Frankston, and Coburg all
yeah,
in there. Like as you said,
exactly.
Port Melbourne sniffing just outside because of percentage, and Southport, like I said, still a game back. Sandy, unfortunately, I think with 16 points,
Well,
it's going to be tough. And they've
they won't
struggled a
make the
little bit.
finals. Sandy won't make the finals. So they've
Yeah.
got to win their last six to be any chance. But
Yep.
their guts and determination, their never say die attitude. They beat the reigning premiers, Footscray, in this. We didn't talk about it, but they beat Footscray at Footscray, the reigning premiers. They've beaten Werribee, who are third on the ladder.
Hmm.
They should have beaten GWS, who are fifth.
Yep.
They are more than nuisance value, the Zebras, and they're on the up with the spirit of being a standalone club once again. So do not take them lightly because you'll get bitten on the bum very quickly.
Yep. Nope. 100% on that. So that is it for burning questions. Let's move to the tipping. Unfortunately, let's get the women's out of the way because unfortunately, with most of those, the tipping is probably pretty easy. So let's start off. Friday, we'll start off with the first one is Collingwood take on the Tassie Devils at La Trobe University in Bondura. Interesting one here. Pies, Devils. Who do you like?
Strange that the Victoria Park is unfit for play at the moment, so games have been moved away from there. There is a section on one of the flanks that has got some real problems, and that's a real worry for them. What's interesting is they're not using their backup ground at Olympic Park, and that they're going out to Bundoora. Collingwood will win.
Mhm.
There's no question on that in my mind. Tassie coming with a wave of confidence after their first win, but Sandringham to Collingwood.
Yep. 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 Little bit of a step up, and I'm 100%. It's like Devils great that they get a win, but this is where the reality of this competition in the top three is. So pies for me on this one. Preston City Oval sees the Darebin Falcons host the Williamstown Seagulls. Can we see an upset, or do the Seagulls keep the top three connected still?
I don't think there's an issue for the Seagulls here. Darebin will always give some cheek, but Williamstown's just that next level up again.
Yep.
So they'll be winning.
Give me the Seagulls. But like I said, hoping the Falcons give us a fun one. I'll ask the next one at Arden Street Oval, but I think I know the answer. North Melbourne, Werribee Kangaroos take on the Dons. I know the Dons have gotten a couple of wins, gotten themselves together, but this is North Melbourne they're running into. Roos, Dons, who do you like?
Well, Essendon actually, apart from that qualifying final last year when North got done by Collingwood, Essendon is the most recent team to have actually beaten the Kangaroos by 3 points in about round two last year. They won't do it here.
Unfortunately, I'm with you on this one. Give me the Roos. An interesting one here is Box Hill take on the Sandy Zebras at Box Hill Oval on this one. Who do you like in this matchup?
Think Box Hill at home. I'm surprised to see the Hawks where they are on the ladder down there in ninth with 2 wins and 3 losses. Um, they just seem to have more of an ability to score than the Zebras. I'm not writing the Zebras off because they are a team that they don't score, but they very rarely get scored against. And it would have hurt them to concede 6 goals, seven, to concede 13 scoring shots to Tasmania last week. What also has to be taken into account here is that, and I know it's different this year because the season's a little bit later and there's games late in the year that are going to overlap with the start of the AFLW competition, so more girls will get a run. But this is usually around about the time of year that the AFL clubs start running their stars through the VFLW for 2 or 3 weeks to give them a run. And so selection could change everything in any of these games, including, not so much the Darebin Williamstown one, and Collingwood will still beat Tasmania regardless, AFLW players or not. But the North Melbourne and Essendon game, the Box Hill Sand, and these next two, anything could happen based on selection. But I've made a short answer long. It's Box Hill to win this game for me.
Yeah, I'll tip the Hawks in this one, hoping Sandy makes this an absolute cracking win at Box Hill Oval. Icon Park sees Carlton versus the Casey Demons in this one. Blues, D's, who do you like?
Blues should be too good here. Casey won well against Tassie in round one, but they haven't looked like it since. So it should be Carlton for me.
Yep, Blues for me on this one. And a cracking one at ETU Stadium as Port Melbourne take on the Western Bulldogs 4v5 here. Who do you like?
This is the one I've got no idea about. It could go either way. Uh, they're fourth and fifth on the ladder. The winner takes the box seat for that home final, that home elimination final towards the end of the year. I'm going to take Port at home, but the Bulldogs beating Box Hill last week really brings food for thought, and they'll keep fighting strongly. What the Western Bulldogs don't do as a rule is bring in mass AFLW players. They only brought in one or two here and there, so they may do that, and that would change my tip completely. But for now, it's Port.
Yep, I'm gonna go with you on that one. Give me Port in that one at home. A little bit of home cooking, I think, will be great. So let's move over to the men's competition. We'll start off at Brighton Homes Arena up in Queensland as the bottom of the table Brisbane Lions. That's so weird to say. Take on the upstart Tassie Devils up in Queensland. Give me the Devils on this one. I think they get a big road. They get a big win in Queensland for the first time visiting the Brisbane Lions.
11 o'clock on a Friday morning, if you don't mind.
Uh,
Simply because the Lions AFL team plays on Thursday night. Devils to win. The Lions are basically stacked with academy kids at the moment, and the top level of those academy kids are playing in the national championships. So Tasmania to win.
Yep. Let's move on to Icon Park as the Blues take on the Werribee Football Club down in Icon Park. A fascinating one here. Who do you like? Blues, Tigers?
Carlton very capable, but coming off 4 losses in a row, I can't go past Werribee.
Yeah, give me the bees on this one. I know it's at Icon Park, but give me the bees on this one. Interesting one at Box Hill City Oval as Box Hill take on the GWS Giants. A fascinating one here. Who do you like in this? Hawks, Giants.
Match of the round for me. This one should be an
Yep.
absolute blinder of a contest. Um, if it was in Sydney, I'd be picking the Giants, but it's in Melbourne, so I'm picking the Hawks. Both teams coming off massive wins last week. I think back home on Box Hill City Oval, the Hawks should be a little bit too good.
Yeah, give me the Hawks on this, and give me the Hawks on this one. Fun one. Let's go up to Sydney and Blacktown as the Sydney Swans host the Sandy Zebras in this one. I know they'll be a little bit more passionate with, unfortunately, with Taylor Adams retiring from the Sydney Swans side. Swans, Zebras, who do you like?
Sydney should win and should win easily. No disrespect to Sandringham, but Sydney is going well. They're in good form. They're coming off the bye. Troops are coming back.
Mhm.
Errol Goulden and Tom McCartan are back in the AFL, which will push 2 players back to the VFL. Dane Rampy is coming back. He is playing in this VFL game. So there is absolutely no excuse. The one thing that gives me a little bit of trepidation is that venue, Blacktown International Sports Park. The Swans have a terrible recent record there. So that will give Sandringham confidence. They even lost there on at least one and possibly even 2 occasions in recent years to the Northern Bull Ants.
Yep. Yep.
So Sandy will go there with absolutely nothing to lose. And if the Swans are off in any way, shape, or form, Sandy will get them. But Sydney should win and should win easily.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. A couple of troops come back with the two additions in the AFL squad. I know Braden Campbell is close. Braden Campbell is close too, so we'll have to see when he comes back.
He's a couple
Yep.
weeks away.
Yeah, still a couple weeks away, and I know Tommy Papley is close too.
He's 2 or 3 weeks away.
Yeah, so I think you're going to get some troops back for this young Sydney Swan side. Give me the Swans in this one. Like I said, the Blacktown stat it concerns me a little bit, but I'll take the Swans in this one. great to see Dane Rampy getting a run in the twos and hopefully back with the AFL squad very soon. So we'll go back down to Bondura as the Collingwood Magpies host the Richmond Tigers in a bottom of the table clash here. Again, as we said, Victoria Park still having issues. So Bondura hosts Collingwood v Richmond. Who do you like?
Really, Collingwood is the biggest disappointment of the season so far for me. I had them in the top four. I had them flying up. They've played some wonderful football at times, but at other times they haven't fired a shot. They're both teams are 3-8. The loser is officially out of finals contention because they won't be able to get to the 10 wins they need. Richmond just has too many injuries
Mhm.
for me, so it's got to be Collingwood.
Yep, I'm the same way.
Last chance to learn for the Magpies.
Yeah, pies for me. Richmond just they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, unfortunately. So interesting. Let's go back up to Queensland and Southport and Frank Hauser Reserve Stadium as Southport hosts the Williamstown Seagulls. Can the Gulls go on the road and get a nice win on the road, or can the Sharks bounce back despite their injury issues?
Yes and yes. Based on troops, Williamstown should
Should
win.
win.
It says Southport's lost 3 games in a row, 2 of them at home. They are a proud unit, and they will come out hard and tough. It would not surprise me at all to see the Sharks get up. I've got to pick right now. I've got to pick Williamstown just on current form and availability, but I reserve judgment and the right to change that once selections come out on Friday.
Yeah, I'll take the Seagulls in this one again. Just a healthier list, a lot more positive momentum on this one. I know it's in Queensland, but give me the Seagulls in this one. But again, that could be a cracking matchup there. Arden Street Oval sees North Melbourne take on the Essendon Bombers in this one. Give me the Roos in this one. Again, Roos playing just a little bit better footy. Not fantastic football, but give me the Roos on this one.
Yeah, North Melbourne should win. You would think there's no underestimating Essendon though. They are pretty close together on the ladder. North's only half a game in front. They just seem to be playing slightly better football at the moment. But this is the 50-50 game of the round. It's not the game of the round because that's the Hawks and the Giants, but it's the coin toss game of the round.
Mm-hmm.
So Essendon very well could win, but when you do have to flip a coin, you come down with the home team.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And then the last one to round out the round, ETU Stadium sees Port Melbourne host the disappointing Suns in this one. Give me the Borough. I just don't like the Suns right now. Bad mojo, sitting near the bottom of the table with all that talent on that list and cannot buy themselves a win.
Yeah, my game this weekend, the Suns have been terrible, haven't they? They lost their last 2 games by 113 and 97 points. One of those at home, one against the flag favourites. No, Port Melbourne have got no excuses here. They just have to win, and they have to build their percentage back up to get themselves back into the top 10. So the Borough should be winning the game and winning it easily.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Well, Brendan, that is it. That is all games tipped. Again, 3 fantastic rounds. So much fun. The best part is we had very few internet issues, which I absolutely love. So, as per usual, Brendan, it is fantastic to sit down and talk VFL footy. Thank you again so much for hopping on the podcast today.
I was starting to get a little bit nervous in the tips there. That was the first hiccup. I thought I've got to shut up so we can get through this. Thanks very much again, Donnie. It's always a pleasure, and as I always say, enjoy the footy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, if you like what you're listening to, please like and subscribe and keep an eye out. We got more footy coverage. We started with VFL. We have Waffle and Sample to come up. More great, fantastic football in the state leagues that we got to cover. So keep an eye out. Those will be in your ears very, very soon. So we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.